Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Maseches CHULLIN Daf Nun Zayin. We begin at the second line off the top of the Amud, back to the birds. Nishtabru raglea. So let's say its legs were broken. The Mishnah cites this as an item on the Kshera list. So even though it has this defect, it doesn't render it a treifa. The animal is still healthy enough to live and is considered kosher. Okay, Nishtabru raglea. It has cracked legs and it's kosher. Here comes a story. Yahu Tzana, there was this basket, the inkuri, filled with inkuri birds. And Rashi explains, they had cracked legs. The Rava, that was presented to Rava to rule on their fate. Batke, Rava B'tzemes Hagidin, what did Rava do? He checked them. He examined the Tzemes Hagidin, that's the cluster of sinews. Rashi says it's comprised of 16 chutin and 16 sinews, nerves in total. And once he confirmed that they were all in place, none of them were missing or severed or injured, and now he permitted the bird. So despite its broken leg condition, it was still kosher because the Tzemes Hagidin, which are critical to the survival of the bird, were all in place. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rab. So Rabbi Yehuda quotes Rav as follows: Shmuta siyat bebehema ksher. Let's shift to a behema for a moment. A behema has a shmuta siyat, so its front, its forearm, has been dislocated. That's okay. Ksher, that's not considered a lethal injury. But shmutas yerach bebehemas treifa. Its hind leg, its hip, has been dislocated. Then you have a treifa. What about a bird? Shmutas yerach ba'if is treifa. Right? So if the bird's leg has been dislocated, it is a treifa as well. And here we go. Shmutas gaf ba'if is treifa as well. So even if it's not the leg, it's just the wing was dislocated. By a bird, it's a treifa. Why? Why is that critical? Chayshinan. So although the wing itself, per se, is not an issue, but chayshinan were concerned that if it got ripped out of its place, since it's sitting right over the bird's lungs, we're concerned that it disrupted the lung as well. Chayshinan shema nikva hareya, the lung got punctured because it's sitting right there. And when it was yanked out, it damaged and injured the whole area, including the lung. So that's Rabbi Yehuda quoting Rav. Ushmuel Amar Tibadek. Shmuel says it's not absolute. You got to check it. Take the lung out, blow it up with a little straw. Get it blown up. And when it's inflated, you'll see if it's leaking and you'll see if it has a hole. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yechon, like what Rabbi Yechon tells us, Tibadek, it's meant to be examined. Chizki Amar, what's the concern? He says, Ein Re'la Oif. A bird doesn't have a lung. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says, of course it does. Yeshle, it has v'yeshna ka'ala shalverd. Although it's very small, it's minuscule, like the petal of a ka'ala, like the petal of a vered, of a little petal of a rose, right? So it's a very small lung. Ka'ala shalverd. Rashi says, dakav aduma, thin and red, little teeny weeny lung. Bein agafayim, and it's situated between the wings. Now, what did Chizkiah mean when he said it has no lungs? My ein re'loif. What does that mean? He meant that it doesn't have a lung at all. We see it does. We see with our own eyes the islay that a bird has a mini lung. Elo de limitriv bay. What he meant was that it's not a critical organ to the extent that even if it's damaged, if it gets a hole, it doesn't make the bird a treifa. That was his point. I asked the Gemara, really? V'atani Levi, how could Chizkiah suggest that? How could Chizkiah tell us? Don't worry about the lung. V'atani Levi teaches us that for all practical purposes, a bird is subject to the same, list of treifa issues that apply to an animal, including the punctured or injured lung. Also matters by a bird. V'atani Levi treifa shemana cham bebehema. The list of various treifas that were listed regarding a behema, connected ba'if. Correspondingly, they apply to a bird as well, including lung issues. Not only that, yasar alein oif. There's an extra one by the bird, which is nishbar etzem. We discussed this yesterday. Even if just a skull around its mini brain was damaged. Even though there was no damage to the actual membrane around the brain. And we learned that this applies to waterfowl. Okay, we discussed this yesterday. But certainly lung issues apply equally in both cases, bird or animal. So what does Chizkiah mean that we're not concerned about its lungs? Ella, rather, he meant like this: that by a bird, by a chicken, the lungs are properly protected. They're encased inside the surrounding, skeletal material, between the bones. Ella ein lo nidapel, meant to say that a bird doesn't have a lung issue regarding linafel. Let's say it fell off the roof unintentionally, etc. You don't have to worry about the lungs. You don't have to check the lungs. Or if it was exposed to fire, don't worry about the lungs. My time of why? Because the lung has adequate insulation, adequate protection. Amrav Chana Hoyle, since the wide side of the ribs, protected, so it's surely okay. Says the Gemara. Is that what Chizkiah meant to say? He wasn't arguing the fact, of course, that a bird has a lung. He just meant to say it's protected. Really? But look, from Rabbi Yochanan's response to Chizkiah, which was, yes, it has a lung. I'll even tell you what it looks like, indicates that Chizkiah was disagreeing on the very fact that it even has a lung. From the fact that Rabbi Yochan responds to Chizkiah by saying, Yeshle, it certainly has a lung. It looks like the rose leaf. They cannot find between the wings. Apparently, the Chizkiah saw it the last. Apparently, Chizkiah was arguing that very fact. Ella, you're right. Amri Marava. In Eretz Yisrael, they related Mishmei de Rabbi Chanina. In the name of Rabbi Chanina, in a little bit of a joking manner, they said Midvarav shal Baribi. From Baribi, the great Chacham Chizkiah, we can tell that he doesn't have a chicken for supper very often. Nikar, it appears, She'enai Baki. He's not well versed, he's not very familiar. He doesn't eat chicken very often, and therefore, so Rashi says, Lashon b'dikhusa, it was in a joking manner. That certainly, factually, it has a lung and it's got to be looked after. She'enai Baki b'tarna goyla. Okay, so let's go back to the bird with a dislocated leg. So far we had Rabbi Yehuda quoting Rav, that it makes it a treifa. Here comes Amrav Huna quoting Amarav. Not to worry. Shmutas yerach b'ifis ksher, dislocated thigh, meaning a dislocated leg. By bird it's okay. Amalei Rabba bar Rav Huna. So he was the son of Rav Huna. He turned to his father, Rav Huna. How can you say it's okay? But the Chachamim that arrived from Papadisa related that Rabbi Yehuda quotes Rav differently. That is a problem. That's a treif, as we had earlier on the page. Amar b'damar mishmei de Rav. Amar the shmutas yerech. Right, so Amru, they said, Rabbi Yehuda Mishmei de Rav Amar, Rabbi Yehuda quotes Rav, that Shmutas Yerach B'Ivis Treifa. And you're quoting Rav otherwise. Amalei says, my son, Bri, Nahara, Upashte. Every river has its own flow, its own current, right? Every town, every community has its own custom, its own practice. And Rashi explains, what he meant to say is like this. Rav personally held it was okay by the Shmutas Yerach. Hence, Rabbi Yehuda quoting him to say as such that it's okay. The reason why in Pumbedisa they perceived his opinion to be different, that's because when he came to Pumbedisa, when he arrived in that town, he saw that they were being machmer, they were stringent on this. He wasn't going to go against them. He wasn't going to go, weaken their resolve, and they were machmer, so he wasn't going to go be lenient on it. Right? So that's why he went along. And he concurred with their opinion that it's asr. But he himself personally held it was okay. Okay, another incident involving this issue. Also Rabbi Abba. What happened was that Rabbi Abba went, and Ashkecha he encountered Rabbi Yirmi Ba'Abba. He sees him checking the kabadak b'temes agid. He had a problematic bird, and he was checking some sort of question there. He was checking the cluster of sinews. Amar Leis, he says to him, why the bother? Even if the whole thing is dislocated, it's okay. Why are you nitpicking on the temes agid? Amar Leis, Lamalei Lamar Kuli Hai. Why is the master? Why do you have to toil on this? Rav Huna Amar Rav. We have a quote. Rav Huna quotes Rav. Even though the whole thing is dislocated, it's okay. Shmudas Yerach Weivus Kshera. Amar Leis says, listen, I just know the Mishnah. Amar Leis Anamas Nisan Yadan. I know about a Mishnah. Which tells us that the Tzeimus Hagid are not critical. And that's what I'm checking for. Mishnah says, Behema Shenechtechu Ragleo Min Arkuba Lamata. Kshera. If the animal's hind legs were removed from beneath the arkuba, that's the first joint, so the hind leg has three bones. Right, starting from the bottom up, it's 1, 2, 3. The middle is the shaykh, the upper is the yarech, and the arkuba is that first joint, like the knee. So if the severance happened below that, min arkuba lamata, it's kshera. Above that, if the whole bone was severed, min arkuba lamala, it's psula. And even if the bone is intact, but if the sinews, that cluster of critical sinews were tampered with, were injured, it is possible. And that's by the behema. V'amar Rav, and Rav himself explained to us on that halakha, Allah, on that Mishnah. He says, the same exact model applies to birds and to chickens. That's why I'm checking. So now we seem to have a dilemma, because here Rav says we have to insist on Tzemis Hagidim being healthy. And a minute ago Rav tells us even if the bird's entire leg is dislocated, it's okay. How do you explain? How do you reconcile that? If that's the case, kasha the Rav, we have a kasha from one Rav and the other ishtik. So he didn't have an answer. Rav Yirmi didn't have an answer. Amar Leis, or his guest, Rabbi Abba, says, I want to suggest a solution. He says, Dilma, Shani Laben Shmut L'chatucha. Perhaps there's a difference between shmuta, dislocated, l'chatucha, versus being cut and injured. Sometimes if it's totally missing, it's out of the way. It's better off than if it's there and cut and infected, and maybe that's the answer. So dislocated is better than injured and cut and damaged and diseased. Gidden. Hamar Leis, so Rabbi Yirmiyah says, you're right on. Right on. Va'at mefarshas shmatze de Rav. So, is this your own elaboration, your own resolution in terms of Rav's opinion? Actually, you're right on. Beferish Rav himself actually taught us this distinction. Shmuta ksheira chatucha psula. Dislocated is better than cut. Shmuta is kasha, chatucha is pasul. But baltisma, in case you're wondering, no. You can't compare conditions, trephis, one to the other. We discussed this several times. Look, give an example. The same type of cut. Sometimes it's life-threatening, sometimes it's not. Depends where you're doing it. If it's on the simanim, there goes the animal. If it's on the leg, on the thigh, it's okay. You cut it mikan on this side, or mesa will die. Mikan on the other side, it will live. So basically, what you're saying makes perfect sense, and that resolves the issue. Okay, so at this point we learned that according to Rav, shmutas yerech, dislocated thigh by an oif, is technically okay, as long as there's no injury to the terms hagidim. Okay. Kisol Rabbi, here comes another anecdote regarding this very same topic. When Rabbi went up to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkel Reb Zera, so he encounters Reb Zera, who was living in Eretz Yisrael, who had left Babel a while ago, was now in Eretz Yisrael, and he was saying over the name of Rav again. The Yosef Ka'amar, he was sitting and saying over Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Shmutas Yerach Ba'if. Guess what? Treifa. Amar Leisor of Abba, the visitor says, no way. Chaye Demar, he made like a shvu on the life of the master of Reb Zera. He says, I promise, Miyoyim with the Solak Mar Lahocha. From the day that you left Bavli and you came up to Eretz Yisrael, there was a lot happening back in Bavli. We turn to the next Amud. Havla and Pischein Peh. We had the opportunity to have a discussion regarding this very topic with Rav, and he clarified it for us personally. And I want to set you straight. I want to correct it. Havalan Pischem Pekah made the Rav Huna, in front of Rav Huna, sorry. V'she'elnei. We asked him this type of question, meaning, what happens if it's a dislocated leg on the bird? V'amarlan, he says, it's okay. Shmutas yerach b'evis kshera. Hashkach te'nami l'Rav Yirmiyah. And in fact, I had that other encounter with Rabbi Yirmiyah, right? Like we said a minute ago, with Yosef Kabbalah with Mesagidin. He was checking some Mesagidin, and I asked him what for. I said the same, what are you bothering checking Shem Sagid? Don't you know that Rav Huna quotes Rav? That even a dislocated, entirely missing Yerach is okay. Why are you bothering to check the Shem Sagid? Amalei. Okay, the whole back and forth, word for word. Listen, I'm quoting him, I'm coming based on a Mishnah which says that Shem Sagidin is critical. Right? The animal's legs are severed lower down. It's okay. Upper severance is possible. Likewise, even if the whole bone is intact, you would think it's okay. No, the semisagidim are gone. The animal is gone. Rav says the same applies to a bird. And that's why I'm examining the gidin on the leg of the bird. I'm relaying, and I asked him, but again, what for? Yachi, if that's the case, if Rav requires the gidin to be in place, how does that fit with the other statement from Rav that the dislocated leg is okay? Yachi kashid Rav the Rav, ishtik, and he was silent. And I responded, I suggested, perhaps Rav would draw that line between removal and damage, the difference between a shmuta, which is okay, and chatucha, injured and cut, which is worse. He says, you got it right there, right? The Rav, you're just theorizing about Rav. Actually, it's exactly what he meant, exactly what he said. The Rav clearly told us this chiluk, this difference between a shmuta, dislocated, which is okay, kshera, whereas chatucha, injured, cut, severed, harmed, is psul. That was the story. Okay, so now he's having this whole discussion with Reb Zera, basically questioning why he is considering a shmutas yerech to be a treifa. Rav himself considered it to be okay. Va'at ma biyodcha, what do you have in your hands? Meaning, perhaps you can clarify for me and explain to me what are you based on? Meaning, what did you hear? What do you have on your end? Rashi says, tell me if you heard anything since you came to Eretz Yisrael. So he says, yeah, I'll tell you. Hochi Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi. Again, Amar Rav, quoting Rav from a different angle, that it's a problem. Okay, so that's my version of things. Shmutas yerach ba'evis treifa. And I'm following that track. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yaakov Idim, Rabbi Yechanan. The same halacha, Shmutas yerach ba'evis treifa. Okay, so both Rav and Rabbi Yechanan concur that it's a treifa. V'amar Rabbi Yaakov Idi. Interesting point. He says, if only Hava were Rabbi Yechanan Basra, if only Rabbi Yechanan was present in that place, the Uruba Chaver Vasal Hatera, the Talmid Chachamim, our colleagues, ruled that it's okay. Loi Pirchas, he wouldn't have fluttered, meaning he wouldn't have had a response. Rashi says, these were great men. He wouldn't have challenged them at all. Which is, the Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rebbe. Rabbi Chanina quotes Rebbe, and Rebbe was the earlier generation, who says it's okay. This very condition of Shmutas Yerech, the dislocated leg, ba'if by bird, is ksher. In fact, there was a story, Retarna Goylas, Hoyset led Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina himself had a chicken with this very condition. Shnishmeto Yerech Shalom, whose leg was dislocated. He presented it to the great Rebbe, and he allowed it. Instead of taking it home and having it for Shabbos, he preserved it for future generations. Umalcha Rabbi Chanina, he heavily salted it to preserve it. And he kept it accessible to show the Talmidim whenever they learned Daf Yomi, Mesechas CHULLIN, halacha Talmidim. He would use it as a show and tell to teach the halacha to the Talmidim. Look at this chicken. Zeh Rabbi. This is the chicken that Rebbe allowed, that Rebbe permitted. Okay, in any case, We have a big machlokes regarding a shmutas yerech ba'oif, an oif which with a dislocated leg. Some say mutter, some say aser. But less hilchasa k'chal hanishmat. So the Gemara concludes, we don't follow, the halacha does not follow all these opinions that permit it. Ella, rather, we consider it a treifa. Ella kihad shal Rabbi Yosef ben Arai, as per the story, Rabbi Yosef had asked Ezer b'Shuban Levi, Kederas kana bekam. First question was, the kana, the trachea, how much could it be missing? Okay, it has a little hole. How much, until, what point is it still okay? Amar Lo, he says, Mishnah Shlema Shanina. We have a whole Mishnah about this, giving us a very precise shiur, at Geser Talki. It can be until the size of an Italian coin, right? But at that point, it becomes a treifa. Amar Lo, he says, what do you mean by Rachel Achas? I'll tell you the story. We had this sheep, which had a big hole in its trachea, and they fixed them up. They made surgery. They inserted these little pieces of a kana, of a reed, to plug up the hole. And it lived. Apparently, it's not life-threatening. It could be, addressed. Amar Loi. So he responded, Valdat Samach, relying on this, just because it prolonged its life, you're going to rely on that? Look, this is an accepted, well-known halacha amongst the Israel. First of all, shmuta sierach ba'ev treifa, that a dislocated leg makes the bird a treifa, right? That's a well-known halacha, despite the fact that apparently there is a workaround. In fact, we have a story very similar to your story. Shimon Chalafta had this chicken with this very condition, with a dislocated yerech, and they propped it up and it lived. They fashioned for it a piece of a kana, a tube, in place of that dislocated leg, and it lived on. So here's an example of a bona fide treifa condition, and that's our point, by the way. We're trying to prove from here how the final accepted view is that a dislocated leg does make a treifa. The fact that he's referring to it as a halacha revachat, it's a known halacha. So you see, that's the halacha that is practiced. Okay, that was the purpose of bringing the story. But in any case, his point was also that you see that even though you can work around the treifa, doesn't make any less of its severity. It's still considered a treifa. Why? So apparently you have to say that when they propped it up, it survived, but up until 12 months, which is sort of the deadline or the lifeline of an animal, meaning a treifa can live past 12 months. So it lived for a little while, and that's it. And eventually, it weakened and it died. Hachanami here as well with your story with the sheep, with its plugged up, hole, although it appeared to have corrected the problem, but once it's a treifa, it's always a treifa, and it's not going to survive past 12 months. Hachanami toich, it was within Yud Beis Chodesh Shabbos within 12 months, but not past that point. Okay, speaking about medical experiments, Hamru Alav al Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta. So the following was said about Rabbi Shimon Chalafta. He was given a title, Sha'askan b'dvarim haya. He was an askan. He was busy with things. He would seek to make real life experiments to substantiate halachas and things that we find in the Torah. Vaya'isa davar lo yitzi mi libay Rabbi Yehuda was involved in an experiment to disprove Rabbi Yehuda's shita. Which shita? Rabbi Yehuda that we had in the Mishnah yesterday. Rabbi Yehuda would tell us regarding a bird, if it's missing its feathers. So the Mishnah says it's missing its feathers, it's heavy feathers, it's still okay. Rabbi Yehuda adds, noitza is the thin furry feathers right near the skin. If that's gone, psula, the bird lost its protection. It's a treif. No, so what did Reb Shimon do to disprove that point? So he had this chicken around that lost its feathers, even its skin feathers, really close to Shenit l'noitza shela, whose noitza was removed. So what did he do? V'nicha b'taner, placed it temporarily for a short stay in the oven, warmed it up, v'tala aleh, and he wrapped it b'matlis shel tarsim, with this leather, very warm cape that the tarsim, that the coppersmiths use. That it's filled with fibers, with hot, copper fibers, and that really heated up the bird, and that precipitated a regrowth of its feathers. In fact, they were even greater, bigger, and more substantial than the original ones. V'gidlo knafayim ha'achronim, and it grew a new batch of feathers. Yais, even greater, and more elaborate, more impressive in Rishonim than the earlier ones. Here you go. This proves Rabbi Yehuda's shita that the fact that it regrew indicates that it's not a treifa. Well, says who says that will disprove Rabbi Yehuda's notion that it's a treifa v'dilma, perhaps because Rabbi Yehuda holds treifa mashbachas. Even if it's a real treifa, technically a treifa can still advance and grow and improve, right? So what does that show? The fact that it regrew its feathers? What does that say? Im Kang says the more, but if so, meaning if it would really be a treifa due to the removal of those feathers, it wouldn't regrow those feathers successfully, because that in itself was the cause of its treifa status. If that is the deficiency that is rendering the bird a treifa, right? Rashi explains, maybe elsewhere in the body, elsewhere in the bird, there could be advancement, there could be shvach, but not on the actual cause of its treifa condition. And if so, in the area, in the item, in the actual cause of its treifa status, you wouldn't say that it can turn around and really come back strong on that point. It couldn't be that it would grow better than before. If that in fact is the cause for it being a treifa, that's the deficiency that's actually endangering its life, it couldn't come back stronger than before. So the fact that it did indicates that it's not a treifa, and that was his point, the point that he was making. Now, why was he called Askam? My Askam with Dvarim, which indicates that this wasn't his only, show and tell incident. There must have been others, and what was it? Amar B'Sharsha. He was involved in another experiment, which related to a lesson that's been taught in Mishlei by Shlomo HaMelech, which of course was written with Ruach HaKodesh. Amar B'Sharsha, the pasuk says, Leich al Namala Atzal. Shlomo HaMelech tells the Atzal, the lazy one, the lazy element amongst in all of us, inside all of us. He says, lazy, Mr. Lazy, go take a look at the Namala, the ant. Look how diligent. Look how motivated they are. Look how organized. Look how honest. They don't steal from each other. Study its ways and you'll be wise. You'll be motivated. Look, despite not having a leader, a ruler, there's no king there. But they're all disciplined. They're all motivated. They're all driven. Prepares in the summertime, prepares its food for the winter, prepares food. Amar. So Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon Chalafti says, I'm going to go make an experiment to check it out if it's really so. Amar Ezel, I'm going to take a look and study the ants. Ivada, is it true? Vadihu, the less Lumaka that doesn't have a ruler, doesn't have a king? I want to figure this out and see for myself. So what did he do? Azal b'tkufas tamas. He went along in the heat of summer. Parse leglimi, he knew that the ants have an affinity to a liking towards shade, and they despise sun. So he made some sort of artificial shady area. Partial glime. He took his glime, his garment, and he hung it up. He hung it out. Akina de Shumshimani, over the anthill, and he made some shade over it. Okay, Nafak Osa, who came out? Nafak Osa Chadmin, one of the ants came out for a visit. So he noticed that it was shady, and then he was about to run back in to tell his friends to come out. It's a good time for a walk. So Rabbi Shimon tagged it, made a simon that he recognizes which one it is, to see what happens when he goes back and it turns out to be a failure. So he went back in. Amarlu, and he told his friends, Nafatula, look, it's shady. Time for a walk. Navku va'asu. They all came running out. Dali leglime. At that point, he lifted his garment. Nahal Shimshek got really sunny. They all got mad at the lookout for misleading them. Naflo leiv, they jumped him and they killed him. Amar, so Shimon surmised, Shmamina, apparently Leslo Malka, they have no king, they have no ruler. It's all free for all. Look, they're just killing this poor ant. The Yislu Harma de Malka, because otherwise, the Yislu, if they would have had a ruler, there was some organized, kingdom system. Harma de Malka, authority, permission from the king, loyally, boy, would they need? Meaning they wouldn't just kill without proper formal court proceeding. So apparently there was no real leader going on. I mean, if that's going to be your proof, it isn't really much of a proof, because perhaps there was a king there and they consulted with him. How do you know? Inami, or Harmona de Malka Nikiti. Or perhaps Harmona, there was already a rule in the rule books laid down by the king that the liars get killed. So maybe it was by the rule book, Inami, or Bei Malka Malkava. Perhaps it was in between elections. Perhaps the king had passed on and hadn't yet elected a new king. Right? So maybe in general they have a ruler, but it happens to be, in this case, it was in a transition period. Bei Malka Malkava, as we find by Klal Yisrael as well, and Shoftim, right, after Yeshua passed on, and there was a sort of transition period between that and Osniel ben Kenaz's assuming of rulership. So the Chsivit says, by Mahima, during that time, there's no ruler. Melech b'Yisrael. Ish Hayash ben Avyasa, but he did what seemed right in his eyes. But in general, perhaps there was a Melech, so this doesn't really prove anything regarding the ants. Hello, so the only way really is Smoich, do me a favor, rely, Ahimnusa de Shleimai, on the integrity of Shleimai Melech. And Rashi says, Nemanu al Kach, we trust him, we believe him. Uburach HaKodesh Nemra. Of course, it was said by Ruach HaKodesh, Hashem, who knows all the secrets of the ants and everything else in this world. Amar Avchuna. Suppose we have an animal which experienced some sort of experience which may have made it a treifa. So it's a treifa in question, right? Anyway, to discern whether or not it's a treifa. Amar Avchuna, similar treifa, Yudbeis Chodesh. How do we know that it's not a treifa? For 12 months. Because if it's a treifa, it can't really live through the whole, cycle of the seasons and everything. The fact that it did go past the 12-month deadline or lifeline, it's not a treifa. Maybe it comes a kasha. 12 months is the test. Similar treifa, kol sheni yoledes. A treifa does not give birth, so if it gives birth, we know it's not a treifa. That's the simon. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Leimer, no, mashpachas ve'lechas. V'yidoshit ksheira. I have a different way of telling. If it increases, it advances, it grows, then it's okay, and it's healthy. Misnabna ve'lechas. If you see it sort of deteriorating, or weakening, then you know b'yadua that it's she'it treifa. Rabbi Eimer, there's a much shorter lifespan for a treifa. Similar treifa, 30 days, shleishim yom. Amar Chacham disagreed. They said, what do you mean? We know in many cases that the treifa, a confirmed treifa, can live way past. Shtayim b'shalosh 2-3 years. Now, if you recall, by the way, interestingly, back in the beginning of Eilu Treifos, we had a machlekes whether treifa can live, or treifa cannot live, and actually, this is the machlekes right here. According to some, it has a lifespan, a limited lifespan of 30 days or 12 months. According to Chachamim, it can live on for a couple of years. It doesn't have very much longevity, but a couple of years it can live. In any case, how does all this fit with Rav Huna, who gave us a 12-month lifeline? Tanoi, because it's machlekes Tanoim, and his opinion, the 12-month limit is found in the Brisa as well. The Sanya, Tanoi, the Sanya, Ubegal Goyles, Sheish Bo Nekev Echad Aruch. So we shift to the halacha that a mace, person who passed away, will spread his tumah to anything under the same roof, provided we have some sort of mace intact, his skeleton more or less intact, his skull. But if it's missing a substantial amount, then it's no longer considered intact, and it's not matami ba'oil. But gogolas, what's the shear of missing? Sheyesh bo nekav echad. It has a large hole the size of a magdeach, of a drill. It was a known size in those days. Nekav echad aruch, even if it's very long, but if the total area of that hole comprises a magdeach that's considered diminished to the point of afilu mekavim harbi mitzarfim magdeach. If you have a series of holes and the total area of all the holes combined is mlei magdeach, that also diminishes its tumah. Amar Rabbi Yosi, and the point is because, as Rashi says, what diminishes the skull's ability to give tumah? If a skull in this very same condition would not allow its owner to live, meaning a person can't live with this type of injury, then that's the shear that diminishes its tumah. Okay, so the large hole would do that. But Rabbi Yosi says, what do you mean? Rabbi Yosi, Ben Shulam, a skull with this type of hole is unsurvivable. A person whose skull was injured, and despite the fact that there was some missing bone, they plugged it up. They took kuruya as a piece of a pumpkin, and they stuffed it in there, plugged up the hole, and he lived. You see, it's not critical. Amar Lo Shimon Elazar says, Misham Rai, how can you prove anything from there? Yeah, he lived for a short while. It was the summertime, it was warm. But once he hit winter, this pumpkin did not provide adequate protection, and he died. Once he hit the cold days, immediately he died. Because only if he actually survives, lives through the full seasonal cycle, experiencing cold, heat, that's a true test of endurance. So basically, this is the shita of Huna. What's a shear of treifa? How do you determine? How do you confirm that it's not a treifa if you can live for Yud Beis Chodesh? Amar Bachbar Yaakov, what's the halacha? Treifa yiledes mashbachas. That actually a real treifa, can actually have offspring and can advance, can grow. So that's not an indication of health, because the treifa can do that as well. What then is the shear? So it doesn't really state, but it's either Beis Chodesh or Lamed Yom, depending on the opinions. Okay, we have Shtab Ragleo, which is considered kosher. Dislocated Yerech by the Oif was a big machlekes, back and forth, until we have the maskana that in fact it's considered a treifa, despite the fact that you can prop it up and repair it temporarily. It's not a permanent solution. And once a treifa, always a treifa. We have interesting show and tell experiments. We have the tarnagel from Rebbe. We have the chicken with the new feathers. We have the story with the ants. And what type of formula can be applied to prove that in fact an animal is not a treifa. All the best to you and Atzlacha.